All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live cooking demonstration. My name is Ryan Smith. I am the Wellness Program Administrator with Georgia State University's Employee Development and Wellness Services. By trade, I am a registered dietitian, and I'm very excited to be cooking with you today. Before we get started, I do want to cover just a couple quick things. We are going to be recording today's session so that you can view it again at a later time or share it with a colleague who may not have been able to attend today. Additionally, as a follow-up, we'll be sharing a link to a short survey where you can let us know how today's session went, and we'll be providing the nutrition information and the recipe for all the different things we'll be making today. Throughout today's presentation, if you've got any questions, comments, suggestions, we love to hear them. Please make use of the chat feature in WebEx, and you can share that information with us. I'll be sure to address any questions and comments at the end of today's presentation. With that being said, we will go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be making pita pizzas. This is a very, very simple recipe, one of the simpler ones we've ever made during this program. This is something that I really like. As a dietitian, of course, I'm focused on healthy foods, but I am a really big fan of pizza. As a kid, pizza was my favorite food, and as an adult, I can pretty safely say pizza is still my favorite food. Of course, we want to be able to enjoy all things in moderation and still take care of our health and ourselves whenever we are making dietary choices. So the idea here is today we're going to use some simple ingredients to quickly make a healthier version of a pizza that's a little more portion controlled too. I know for a lot of people, pizza is delicious, but it's easy to accidentally do a few too many slices when you're not really keeping track of things, and that's because we typically get pizza in a very large quantity. This is something where they are designed to be single serving, so you can more easily limit yourself to an appropriate amount while also loading up on vegetables and making healthier choices with those other ingredients. In terms of equipment for today, you won't need too much. You'll want to have a baking sheet handy, and then we're going to make use of the oven. If you don't have an oven at home or you're not able to use one, a toaster oven will work just fine. You'll be able to make them one at a time in there, as opposed to sort of batch cooking them all together in a larger oven. Other than that, you'll just need a cutting board and something to cut with, and you'll be able to prep the ingredients. So the basis of our pizzas is, instead of using a just typical white flour wheat-based crust, we're going to be using a whole wheat pita. If you've never had pita bread before, they're really great. They're pretty versatile. You can make a lot of different things with them. You can make pita chips. You can make little pita pocket kind of sandwich things. But we are actually going to use the pita, just keep it intact like this, and it is going to take place of our pizza crust. Now, something I want to point out is this is very specifically a whole wheat pita. When we say whole wheat, it means that it is 100% whole wheat, 100% whole grain. We're getting extra fiber, we're getting extra B vitamins, and we're getting some extra protein over a white product, like a white bread instead of whole wheat bread, or if we were to do like a white pita instead of a whole wheat pita. So when you're shopping, look for that whole wheat pita. That's going to be the first opportunity to make a little bit of a healthier choice. In terms of sodium, this is going to be a lot lower in sodium than like a pizza crust would be. So we're saving a little bit there, keeping it a little bit healthier. So we are actually going to make 3 different varieties today. When I send you the recipe, it's going to be designed to make one type and to make about 3 or 4 of them, so you can batch cook and have some lunches prepared, or you can share it with your family, friends, or anyone else who may be in your household. But today, to show you a little bit of variety, I'm going to actually make 3 different types, so you can see, some different ideas for how you might pull in your favorite flavors or things that you prefer whenever you're setting up your pizza topping. But each pizza will have a fairly similar base. So I'm going to move some of these veggies out of the way, and we'll come back to them in just a minute. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with our sauce, of course. Now, pizza sauce is another place where it may not always be the healthiest thing. A lot of times if we get pizza sauce from just a pizza place that comes on the pizza, or if you're just shopping without paying a whole lot of attention, tomato sauces, pizza sauces can be very, very high in sodium. I found a pizza sauce, so this is nice because it already has some herbs mixed into it. A just plain like tomato paste or tomato sauce is usually just going to be tomatoes. Pizza sauce is going to have some extra flavorings through things like Italian seasoning to give it a little bit more of that Italian-based flavor. This is a lower sodium variety here. I got this one from Kroger. It's their Simple Truth brand. The nice thing about it is in a quarter of a cup, it's only got 230 milligrams, which is about 10% of your daily sodium. For a tomato-based sauce, that's pretty low. We're going to use about 2 tablespoons per pita. So you can measure that out. Just get your spoon, and I'm basically just going to do 2 spoonfuls. That's enough to give us some of the flavor. We also don't want to put too much sauce on these pita pieces because we don't want them to get too soggy so that they don't cook and get crispy enough. So we're keeping it a little bit lighter and just sort of spread it around like that. Using the back of the spoon is what I find to be most effective. So again, 2 tablespoons per pita bread, and then we're just spreading it around. Now, you have the opportunity to, of course, make your own pizza sauce if you would prefer to, or your own tomato-based sauce. I know some people really enjoy that process. They may add extra vegetables to the sauce. Some people will put carrots and things like that in there to add some extra nutrition, and then you're able to season it however you prefer. I'll leave that up to you, but our goal today is to make this a simple and quick recipe, so I am just using the pre-made lower sodium pizza sauce. Emphasis on that lower sodium part. So we'll set the pizza sauce over there for now. So we have our bases ready. The next thing that we're going to do is incorporate our cheese. Now, cheese is where a lot of us may get into some trouble when it comes to pizza. I'm a big fan of cheese. And of course, while it's tasty, it does have a good bit of sodium in it and is fairly dense in terms of calories. So by moderating our portions, we can still enjoy that flavor, still get that cheesy goodness, but not go overboard on it and still feel like we're making a healthy decision. The 3 different flavors that I'm going to be making today, I'm going to make a margarita-based pizza, which will have some tomatoes and some basil. Very classic pizza, pretty straightforward, nothing too fancy there. That's definitely a crowd pleaser. I'm going to make a sort of veggie-based one that's going to have some black olives, some green peppers, and some red peppers. We can still incorporate a lot of those classic Italian flavors on that. And then the third one I'm going to be making is a little different. It's going to be a Tex-Mex inspired blend. It's going to have some corn, some jalapenos, some peppers, and it's going to use a different type of cheese to give it a little bit more of that kind of Mexican cuisine flavor. So for the 2 kind of more classic Italian ones, we're going to be using just our regular part skim mozzarella cheese. So it's a little bit lower in fat. We're going to use a 1/4 cup for each pizza that we make. That is a healthy serving of cheese that still gives us 8 grams of protein, but moderates the total amount. So this is actually 1/2 cup here, so I'm just going to divide it between those 2 pita pizzas. And really, you can use any type of cheese you want for this. Mozzarella is kind of a classic go-to that I know works well with a lot of Italian-based flavors, but you can experiment. As I mentioned, I'll be using a Mexican cheese for our Tex-Mex pita pizza, and it can be fun to mix it up and try different varieties. Some people like to put a little Parmesan on top, maybe sprinkle the crust with the Parmesan to give it an extra unique flavor whenever you're biting into that. So as you can see, we are doing just enough cheese to get a little bit on each bite, kind of coating around there, but we're not trying to make it, too much, too overboard. So this is a good place to be. For our Mexican-based one, or our Tex-Mex one, we'll be using a Mexican cheese blend, which has a couple different types of cheese in there that I do think gives it kind of a more quesadilla-based flavor. And that'll be interesting for the pizza, but it definitely goes well with some of the other vegetables we're putting on there. You may have had like a Mexican pizza before. I think they're really fun. I really like those kinds of flavors. So that's what we'll be doing for that one. And of course, at home, you can choose the flavors that sound appealing to you and stick with those. So we've got some cheese on there. Let's put on some veggies. So for our margarita pizza, as I mentioned, we're going to just be using tomatoes and basil. Very simple, very classic. A fun thing about this is if you've got kids or some picky housemates who, may not always like everything that you prepare and put on the table, this can be a really great activity where you're able to create some toppings. You can pre-chop a couple veggies, have them in different bowls, and then have people pick out the toppings that they want, personalize their pizza, and then you can bake them in the oven together and everyone can have a fun meal that's been catered to their preferences and their favorites. So I always love when there's customization options for things like that. So we've got our big tomato slices on here. This is some fresh basil. I'm just going to tear it into some smaller pieces and put it on here. You can use dried basil for this. It definitely has some flavor in there. I'm a big fan of fresh basil, so I will be using fresh today. And in addition to the flavor, those little specks of green definitely add some nice visual appeal there. So let's move to our just kind of classic veggie pizza over here. We are, for that one, going to make use of some green bell peppers. I'm just going to sprinkle them on here. All right. And then let's get some black olives on there too. I love black olives. They are pretty high in sodium, so moderation is key again. We're watching our total salt intake with the lower amount of cheese, the lower sodium tomato sauce, and we're using those whole wheat pita breads. So we've got a little bit of an allowance here, a little room to add in some fun flavor like this. Okay. Now for our Tex-Mex one, again, we're using some slightly different vegetables for this, things you might not always put on a pizza, but it does come out really tasty. We're going to do a little bit of corn, really just like a tablespoon. We don't want to overwhelm it since we are getting a lot of good carbohydrates from the whole wheat pizza. We don't have to go super heavy on the corn. I'm going to put some jalapenos on here because I do like spicy things, and I think that's a fun way to bring in a kick. You can, of course, leave those off if you are not as big of a fan of the spiciness. And then we're going to do some red bell peppers for that Tex-Mex inspired one. Give it some additional pops of colors. The red against the green of the jalapenos and the yellow of the corn is a really nice combination there. And I'm going to actually go back and add some extra peppers here. Again, we're trying to make this as healthy as possible, so the more vegetables you can load up, the better. It's definitely going to add some more fiber, some more vitamins and minerals, and increase that nutrition content. So at this point, there are some additional things we can do if we want to add extra flavor. As I mentioned, the pizza sauce that I'm using already has Italian seasoning in it, which means for our Italian-based pita breads, they've got a good bit of flavor. But if you want to add some extra things, I know people like red pepper flakes on pizza, that would be great. If you're using a more neutral tomato sauce or just a tomato paste, this would be a good time to add in some Italian seasoning, give it some flavor on top. For the Tex-Mex one, I like to use cumin. You can also do a little bit of chili powder if you want. Just a little, like a dash of it to give it a little bit more of that Tex-Mex flavor. Now, small side note, for simplicity's sake, I'm using the same pizza sauce across all of these, which means technically my Tex-Mex one has Italian seasoning already in the sauce, which is a little bit of a weird mix with cumin. I wouldn't actually recommend doing that at home in practice if you want to do the Tex-Mex one. I would suggest getting a more neutral tomato sauce or just tomato paste, adding cumin and chili powder to it for those flavors, and kind of leaving the generic pizza sauce out of that one. But again, for simplicity's sake today, it's all just going together. It's pizza, so I'm pretty confident it'll still taste good. So next, you'll want to go ahead and get your baking sheet. We're going to use, you can use cooking spray to just lightly coat it. If you don't have cooking spray, you can put a little bit of oil on there, just pour some, and then use an oil brush or a paper towel to just move a little bit of it around. So just a quick spray to prevent it from sticking. And you can usually get away with fitting about 3 of these on a single pan. So that's why I say 3 is probably a good batch cooking size. All right. So at this point, you'll want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and then you'll cook these for about 12 to 15 minutes. If you like it crispier, aim for that 15-minute mark. I found you get to a really nice texture there. If you don't like it as crispy, you can go for the 12-minute mark. That way the cheese will have melted. It'll be lightly browned. It'll still be well baked, but it won't be quite as toasty if you're not as big of a fan of that. So I'm actually going to set this over to the side, and then I've got one I've already prepared here. And we can showcase what some of these look like. I'll try to give you a better view. But it's pizza. It looks delicious. Like I said, it's my favorite food. So coming up with an easy way to make these single serving ones at home is something I was really excited about. Let me give you a closer look at some of these. So here is the margarita one. You can see the tomatoes and the basil pieces on there. And if you look from the side, because it's the pita bread, this is kind of naturally a thinner crust pizza. It's lower in carbohydrates and calories because we are using the whole wheat pita for it. So it works out really well and keeps this to a nice like lunch size serving. Here's a closer look at just that sort of veggie supreme one with the olives and the peppers on there, definitely looking tasty. And then here is our Tex-Mex one with the jalapenos, the corn, and the red bell peppers. So all those different veggies come together in different ways to make exciting flavors. You can definitely serve this and complement it with some other foods. We've got some veggies here, but we could benefit from having even a little more. Having one of these with a nice side salad at lunch would be a great way to incorporate even more vegetables. You could have a piece of fruit with it too for a sweet finish to pull in some additional food groups, because we've checked a lot of boxes here. We've got our grains through our whole wheat pita, veggies through our toppings. We've got some protein and dairy coming from the cheese. It's definitely a nice mix, and adding a small piece of fruit on the side could complement that even more. So all in all, this is about a 5 to 10 minute prep time for the recipe with about 15 minutes of bake time. As I mentioned, prepping a couple of these up front, they do great in the fridge for up to 4 days. You can microwave them, pop them in a toaster oven if you've got one wherever you're going to be at, and it's a great lunch meal prep to help get you through the week. Or if you're in a pinch and you need a quick meal on a weekday for you or your family, it's easy to whip up. So I'm a big fan and I highly recommend it. As I mentioned, we're going to send out a copy of the recipe where I'll include these 3 different varieties, and you can see how to make them and how their nutrition information compares. And you can take that into consideration and then maybe come up with some other creative solutions. I'm a big fan of broccoli on pizza. Not a lot of places offer that at restaurants, but it's one of my favorite things to do is have small florets of broccoli on there. So you could come up with some different things like that you could add to it. The sky's really the limit when it comes to our vegetable toppings. So get creative, have fun, and you can start to balance this meal whenever you're getting a craving for pizza and have something that's a little bit healthier. So I do want to turn my attention to the chat, see if we have any questions or comments. Here's someone saying they look delicious and I'm making them hungry. It is lunchtime. I always make these right at lunchtime. So as soon as the camera goes off, I'm eating them. That's always what I go to. Okay, here's a question. Does it make a difference which side of the pita you use? Good question. So the pitas kind of have trying to think of how to describe it. They have a little bit of an arc to them. They rise up, and there's kind of the bottom side has a little bit of a bowl in it almost. I have actually just been putting it on the top portion of it. You could certainly flip it upside down. It shouldn't make a big difference when you're baking it, as long as you are spraying a little bit of cooking spray or a little bit of oil on the baking sheet. That will prevent them from sticking. But if you find yourself putting a lot of veggies or a lot of ingredients, flipping it upside down and kind of using that natural little bowl or cup shape may help you load a few extra things on there. So good question. And again, I want to put emphasis on this is a whole wheat pita. So we're focusing on those whole grain options. That is going to make it healthier with the extra fiber and the extra protein. Okay. And I don't see any other questions at this time. So again, thank you everyone for attending. You're going to get a link to a quick survey where you can let us know what you thought of today's session. If you've got ideas for future sessions, we'd love to hear that too. You'll receive a copy of the recipe and the nutrition information. If you enjoyed today's session and you're interested in our other wellness events, we do all sorts of different things here with EDWS. Tomorrow, we'll actually be having a guided meditation and yoga session. If you're interested in things like that, it'll be from noon till 1:30. You're welcome to drop in and out whenever you'd like. If you can only attend part of it, that's still great. We'd love to have you there. If you're not already on our mailing list, we send out weekly emails to advertise our stretch breaks, our workouts, our snack and cheer support group, our book clubs, these cooking demos, and more. If you want to get on the mailing list, you can email us at edws@gsu.edu, and we'll be happy to get you on there. I'm going to check the questions one more time, and it looks like we are all set. So thank you again, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day.